everyone, and welcome to Global Expansion out of Singapore. I'm really excited today to be joined by two amazing speakers and for such a timely topic, as it looks like 60% of Singaporean companies are planning to expand in the coming year, according to research from Singapore Business Federation. And in such a small market, this does make sense. Overseas growth is not really a nice to have for Singaporean companies, but kind of essential for tapping into larger customer bases, accessing talent, and staying competitive. But expanding across borders is not simple. Like, companies have to find the right markets, find the right timing, and use the right frameworks to avoid risk. And that's a lot of what we're going to explore today alongside these two wonderful speakers. So I'll pass over to them to introduce themselves. We have Dennis here.
Hi, thanks, Beth. I'm Dennis. I'm Executive Chairman of Embed Financial Group Holdings, EFGH for short. Nice to meet everyone.
Amazing. Nice to meet you too. And we also have Liying.
Hi. This is Liying here. I'm the VP Sales for APAC for Multiplier and have previously worked for other startups and launched them in Southeast Asia before. So topic very close to heart. I'm really glad to have Dennis with us today to discuss this as well. Thanks, Dennis, for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you both so much. Okay, amazing. Kind of going to jump straight in, but just a note for the audience that we do have polls throughout. So make sure to interact. And also, if you want to leave any comments or messages, you can do so in the chat and we'll get back to you. But I'm going to start with you, Dennis. So kind of with the how do you know when you're ready to expand beyond borders? Kind of what were the signs for your business that you were ready?
It's a good question. I think I to be very honest, I went with my gut because I realized that what I'm doing as an organization, right, is meant for the unserved. And I think in Singapore, generally in the financial institutions, they're all pretty well served and many areas, right? So I intentionally spent a year in Zimbabwe, in Africa. So after spending a year there, then we started to grow into other markets. So currently we are in 8 markets in Africa, and it was not of course, guts is one thing, and of course, strategically for the organization, it made sense for us because it's populous. One, Africa as a continent is very populous. 2, I think I just want to dispel a notion every time I speak to people that I'm in Africa that, wow, are there lions? Do you visit the safari? And I just want to say it once and for all, I've never visited one safari, even though I've traveled across 15 of the markets. Shame on me, right? So, but I think it's well, most of the countries I've visited thus far are well organized, and of course, the opportunities are abundant. But of course, how you deal with it and how you manage it, it's there's a lot of human relationship. Not forgetting, of course, anywhere you go, whether Africa, Middle Asia, or even Eastern Europe, Central Europe, there's always this risk factor that you need to consider. So these are all the thoughts in the top of my head whenever I move to a new market. So it was quite a natural thing for me, if I may add, but not really. It's kind of guts and looking at the market size.
Okay, yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump out. Congratulations. I heard from Kingsley about the win recently with DRC. So congratulations there. That was a big project, and it must be part of your plans and travels across Africa that has won that project.
Yeah, I think DRC is one. The other one is in Ghana, which is also public knowledge, another major project. So it's shaping up well, but of course, work to be done. I need to roll up my sleeves, take out my jacket, and get some real work done. But it's been fun. It's been fun.
Well, before Beth, I know has questions in mind, but I think this leads me to a question as well. It's not easy. We see a lot of companies, clients on my end who are trying to build out and launch in Africas, and often they find that it's the local complexity, understanding about local compliance, that's been a big obstacle for them. How are you navigating it? I'm keen to understand from yourself as well.
It's a good one, Liying. I think the way I structured my organization, it's still work in progress. I'm not saying it's done. It's decentralized decision making, which means that I've appointed 2 CEOs in Africa, and one is based in DRC and one is based in Zimbabwe. for geographic strategic reasons, one in the east and west and one in the south. And I've always said, because you're closer to the ground, the decision making should come from you, our customers, right? Because you're closer to the customers. It should not come from me. I'm sitting like 5,000 miles away. So I decentralize this decision making process, and that has made things easier. And of course, because we also internally we appointed a head of risk and compliance, right? Just to make sure that it falls within acceptable risk versus certain risk that we're willing to take. So we have a framework internally, but sometimes it's also a bit of a, again, I can't trivialize the human relationship that forms part of the expansion plan as well.
Interesting. So how does it work when you want to expand into a new region? Do you then have to hire the decision makers first in that region to kind of like set up a base if you have this decentralized model?
It's a great question, but it's perfect timing, because just about 2 hours ago, we decided to set up a Vietnam office. And because then we realized, in my previous employer, right, I had a very reliable pair of hands that I used to work with, and say, you know what, are you ready to do this? And then you say, yeah, why not? Then here we go. So you have local knowledge, local smartness, local talent. I mean, and obviously speaks the language. That's important to me, and understanding the local nuances. So yes, sometimes you need that stroke of luck to know that, oh, you've got someone reliable on the ground and someone that is dependable. It's not so much of the technical skills. It's more of the individual that we speak to has the people skills and the reliability. Technical skills, I think there are tools out there to help, and there are always structures in place anyway.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Liying, on your side, what kind of do you think that companies need to have in place before they think about global expansion?
Yeah, so what we see often, is that it's not just about having the right financial in place, having the right plan in place, but very much what Dennis has mentioned, is having the right people as well. How do we make sure that, we are ready operationally to make sure that there's a safe pair of hands on the ground? How do I make sure that, we are working compliantly? So it's amazing here that you've hired in the head of risk and compliance, because that's just so important. Not just for the fact that, we want to make sure that we're running compliantly in the region, but as well as compliant to our people as well.
Right.
And making sure that, we are doing everything right by the employment laws. I remember being the first headcount for a Chinese company looking to launch in Southeast Asia. So I was in charge back then, this was 2016. I was in charge of trying to get insurance companies for them, and no one would insure me for 3 people. We had to get minimum 10 people back then. I said, what are going to do with the minimum 10? I'm a shoestring budget, I'm bootstrapping. Like, I'm not going to have 10 insurance licenses running around. So how do I work with that? I was in charge of CPF, and I was trying to launch a business and doing CPF, and often running late, paying fines, and then running in the understanding that I can't be late on CPF because that's going to pay off someone's mortgage, for example. So all of that means that it's so important that compliance by design, we need to be compliant. It's not just a by way of. We have to make sure that we are designing it into the business so that we're creating the right foundations operationally, not for business expansion as well as for our people. So that we are just taking out the risk, taking out the non-compliance portion, ensuring that there's trust in there. We need our clients to trust, our suppliers and clients to trust that we're doing the right things. We need our employees to trust that we are going to pay them, and trust that we're doing them right with all the, regulatory submissions, statutory payments, and doing right because, at the end of the day, this is an ongoing business. And this is going to be a linchpin in making sure that we are launching right to other markets as well. So yeah, when Multiplier, for example, came to me with this role, it just resonated so much because I had the personal experience as the first employee myself and know the pains and how important it is for us to be able to help other companies to make sure that they're ready. We're not spending 6 months trying to find how to set up the bank account, how to get the local director or local secretary. All of that it's that takes the process, and how do we then help to make sure companies are compliant and can go to market quickly, right? So I think that's something that it's so key when launching new markets and trying to understand the local nuances and doing right for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Dennis, was there anything that you found like an unexpected challenge or maybe like quite time consuming when you first started expanding?
I know I kind of feel the pain what Liying mentioned, right? You know, when I started off as a one-man army, right? So I had a few individuals that on the team, and I was struggling every month end with CPF enrollment, filling up the then I'm openly admit to both of you, I'm the last guy you find on earth that is good with an Excel spreadsheet. So I was struggling day in, day out, and every time when it's near month end, we see my face all scrunched down because I'm just staring at the spreadsheets and I'm like, oh my god. And I think that so these are the struggles when you shift that struggle elsewhere to another place, and suddenly the game changes. It's maybe not CPF, for example. It could be another pension fund that you need to contribute to, and if you're not aware of it, for some strange reason, you get a fine somewhere out of the blue, and then you kind of get frustrated. And I think there are better ways to do this now. There are tools out there to help you. There are platforms to help you. I think leverage on this because you can't have everything on the brain, and you cannot use. You need a second brain, which is using the tools that will help you prompt you to say you need this done, you need that done. So I totally understand what Liying is saying, and I've been through that many times in my life. And sometimes, as a stubborn individual, you don't learn, right? You just say, I can do this. But hey, let the experts do what the experts do. Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know that. I know the Excel spreadsheet you're talking about with keying in the ID and the date of birth. That still gives me nightmares once in a
Yeah.
while. I know exactly the spreadsheet that you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. And I
And
mentioned this, Lee, it's fascinating, right? In Singapore, we use day, month, year, right? Then you flip to another country, suddenly it's month, day, year. Oh no, someone that's born on a day that's not existed.
that happens, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you have experience as well when you have it's almost opportunistic sometimes, right? When you launch a new market because a project came on and you need to
Yeah.
hire a local project manager. You go, how am I gonna
Yeah.
do that? Like, how do I make sure I'm locally compliant? Do I need to set a local
Yes.
entity? But then my client is ready to roll. I'm not gonna let that big project slip
Yeah.
away.
Correct.
Um,
Exactly.
and we promise behind, we're like, oh, don't worry, I'll hire a team, once this is launched. And you go like, how am I gonna do that? Because clients like, okay, N minus 30 days, let's go. And you're like, wait a minute, I haven't even interviewed anyone. But in N plus 30 days, I need to have someone start in client side. So those days and pains are exciting. When you grow the markets, and I'm hearing the excitement even in your tone of voice. We talk about launching the Vietnam. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the fun part of expansion and what we need to do for businesses in Singapore, right? Like our local
Yeah.
market, addressable market is only that big. And one of the best things I think about being in Singapore is our adaptability,
Yes.
not
Yes.
just in
Yes.
terms of time zones,
Yeah.
but also how we actually go out to market to expand.
Correct.
And
100%. And don't mind if I add another point, Beth and
of
Lee. I
course.
think what really helped, and not to sound perverse or anything, was COVID. COVID has taught us to use tools, right, like Zoom, Teams, and all that. So I think that has helped immensely. Before COVID, nobody cared about Zoom. So now so I think such tools do help. Technology helps. So I think it's been great.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I wanted to look a little bit more at the kind of which markets, where should you expand question. I know you talked about some of the places that you've expanded to in Africa. Is there a kind of framework you use to assess that opportunity, or is it kind of like project by project?
Sometimes it's like what Liu mentioned. There's a client that say, "Hey, can you do this?" Sure. Sometimes you look at the markets and then you realize that, because for me, I wouldn't say it's easier, but it's kind of quite intuitive for me because when you realize that the population is unserved, largely unserved, then that's where you say, okay, let's dive in, right? And I mean, I might not be giving a good example, but for example, I visited Warsaw 3 weeks ago in Poland, and I had many, many good conversations. I was invited to speak at one of the programs, right? So then I had so many good conversations. I said, hey, you know what? The place is beautiful. The weather was great. It's not humid like Singapore. Let's do it. So there's also underway. We are setting up an office in Warsaw, right? And there are enough partners and the market need for all the things that we aim to do. So it's I don't have a framework per se, but it's really a bit of intuition, strategy, and also making sure that we have the right support along the way.
Makes sense. Liying, on your side, what kind of, well, actually from our data or from what you see from clients, what countries do Singaporeans typically expand into?
I would say that not the usual ones, being Congo or Zimbabwe or Poland. Those are quite unique, Dennis. I didn't expect that coming through. But the usual ones that we see, obviously coming straight up would be our immediate neighbors, being Indonesia and Malaysia. But more often than not, we're seeing that Philippines and India are big ones, especially where we look into setting up, not just business expansion, but backend services. So looking into your mid office or your back office support. These destinations are fluent in English, right? And they're the right time zones with us. And so by offering this large, highly skilled English speaking talent, a lot of them are very skilled. For example, in Philippines, very skilled in customer service, hospitality, travel tourism. In India, you have a lot of talent setting out with your technology, finance, and that really suits a lot of the business models and industries that we have here. So we end up seeing a lot of clients looking at these markets as part of a very natural expansion and cost evaluation in terms of the markets that we look at. Separately, now we have now with very interesting visa requirements in the US. We also then see Canada being an interesting angle in state to look into North Americas, and always know the UK, France, Italy are a good spots to look out as a hub coming up for Europe as well. But with English speaking as a some point of consideration, normally people will then start first with the UK and then look into the neighboring countries with large GDP or large addressable markets, the likes of Germany, the likes of France, the likes of Italy. But that said, we are seeing, especially post-COVID, like what Dennis has mentioned, where markets like Vietnam, Indonesia, Poland have been very strong supply for tech and development. So tech engineers, developers, a lot of them have come through as part of interest coming up from Poland, Vietnam.
Makes sense, really. How does Multiplier kind of help our clients to find these ideal markets, Liying?
So I think what we run here is also having a very much of a consultative based approach. We go to clients and share with them some of these insights, right? So it's about what other companies are doing, what we see, what are some of the pitfalls that we see as well. People don't know that in Philippines, you actually need to give a 13th month guaranteed salary or in December. But if you're going to Spain, Dennis, are you planning to go into Spain?
I've been to Spain, but I have a thought about it. So I had a thought and I find it interesting.
Okay, Spain,
maybe.
we'll let you know. For example, Spain, we actually need to have 2 months compulsory extra months. So you pay an extra month salary in July and an extra month in December. So these are different advice that I give the customers, being able to guide them as to where the markets are, what are the considerations, be it in terms of the product fit, in terms of the function fit as well. So that it would then translate into what I call a common market, and seeing what we see in terms of the market trends. That's also where they're likely to be able to find talent, right? So there's no point in advising a market or like telling them, great, I'm sure you can find someone in Portugal. but actually most of the tech talent is sitting in Poland. And then if they want to go in there, we can guide them towards that to say this is where we see a lot of the trends. It helps them to launch faster as well, because there's a big market pool of talent in some of these markets that we're really seeing. So in doing that, we're able to advise not just on the industry specialisms, but able to help to guide based on the global pool that we see, the functional pools as well. And then from then on to be a guide on the compliance portion of it and what they need to look out for. Africa, for example, many people are going there. But I hear that visas sometimes take up to a year to get approved. So we need to make sure that our clients are aware, if this is the ideal market, that they're also planning for this in terms of the time to take to launch in some markets.
Right.
Yeah. Is that something you kind of came up against, Dennis? Like how were your first few hires? What was your strategy there?
I'm a very people person, right? So I look at nuances, I look at culture. And in my previous employment, I used to manage 24 markets, right? So I think one thing I always live by is, it sounds airy-fairy, is a connectivity the individual are talking to. It can be sometimes it might not be good English, it might not be, but it's just how the vibes are, right? I call it a vibe check, okay, for lack of a better word. So the vibe check is very important for me when hiring. And this is not a good example. Do not take my word for it. I typically do not look at the CV, because when you look at the CV for a start, you kind of start to you form an opinion already. So I rather speak to the individual and then see what the individual has to say. And it's really, for the life of me, okay, again, not a good example. I've never done a legit interview for the last 10 years of my life, right? Like, what do you see yourself in 5 years? Because I asked myself, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. How do I ask someone, what do you see yourself in 5 years? So I kind of have a real conversation as a person. And sometimes in some markets, I'm sure Liying are aware, like in Indonesia and Thailand, typically they do not say no. They say no in 5,000, we've covered with 5,000 yeses, right? So these are the things you need to read between the lines, and these are how subtle. So not that the CV is not important, do polish up your CV, but I think the CV is a reference, but how you interact with the individual should not be guided by what is written on the CV. This is how I operate.
I like
I'm
that.
not very sure that,
Yeah.
it's a good answer, but
No, it makes sense. Do you then have to kind of adapt your approach to different cultures, like when you are having these conversations, and like how do you kind of account for those cultural differences?
yeah. I just give you an example, right? When I was talking to a JV partner in Ghana, we spent 4 hours chit-chatting about the family, chit-chatting about the tea, chit-chatting about cocoa and all that. But I didn't dive straight in because I felt rude. Because it was all about the cocoa plantations, about the family, how the kids are doing. So that went on and on. Then finally, the real business chat was about 35 minutes. So I kind of got used to it now. And we, as Singaporeans, right, we have this thing about us, right? Let's be efficient, boom and go. Sometimes it doesn't work well. It cannot boom and go, but I think we just have to you have to do, in Rome, do what the Romans do, right? So, and
Yeah.
never ever enforce or try to educate or try to influence someone by, hey, this is a Singaporean way. It's not going to go far. It's not going to go far. I hope that makes sense.
I think this is what I used to call social reference.
Yeah.
So I have met many people. I don't like to look at their CVs as well, but getting to know them, talk to them, and find out who they actually are as a person. Not just candidates that I interview or hire, but also clients, right? Like, where do they want to take the business? What their values are? When you say talk about their families, because sometimes it's a lot more behind it. And that's when you really build the rapport and the trust, for you to actually earn the business. You always have to earn the business by being a human first, because at the end of the day, transactions are transactions. Someone might come in with a better
Yes.
price, with a better bid or lower cost, but there's a certain trust and loyalty I believe that we can actually build in the business arena. And that is all from the relationship. It's never about the contract, because someone else can
Correct.
always better you, right? It's not just about the numbers.
100%.
Numbers alone is not root enough. But I think it's that relationship, the 4-hour conversation. It's about the family dinners that you attend, that that you're really integrated with them. And they treat you as one of their own, and that's really where the real business happens.
Yeah, 100%. If I may just add, Riley, and I think I've had meals in many different ways in Africa before. Whether it's sitting on the floor using my hands, or I've been invited to many homes just to have a meal or have a cup of tea. And I'm quite adaptable. So I think, but the good news is, if you're expanding out of Singapore, just for the sake of everyone who's listening in, Singapore is a great brand to expand. Because typically when you go out there and say from Singapore, it's like, oh, okay. But then don't get too hung up on your own efficiency, right? So I think, eat like a local, breathe like a local. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, makes sense. Is there differences, like do you sometimes hire people as contractors or employees based on like where they are, or is it always full-time employees that you're hiring, Dennis?
For me now, mostly full-time employees, because there's a reason behind this. Contractors are great to fill a short-term gap, but my business strategy typically is mid to long term. And some of these deals that I orchestrated or get into, normally government deals, and they don't get done within 18 months, right? So you kind of need that continuity. So you bring in my solution to this, Beth and Liying, is hire people smarter than me. So then I can just sit here and chill. But but that's kind of my game plan. Right? I always hire people smarter than me. So I give you an example. Eric Boma, my CEO of Africa, I think he's from Harvard. He's got his Stanford education and all that. So, and he's got his Harvard in MPA policy making, and so I rather put him in front of the room with the government than me. Right? So I can be the guy smiling there like a Cheshire cat. So
It's a good strategy.
so that's fine.
Well, you're the smart one.
Yeah.
You're the smart one to have identified him in the first place.
Yeah.
So kudos.
I worked
kudos on that.
I worked with him before, so it helped, right? So yeah, so that's kind of my little life hack in hiring. I hire people that are smarter than you.
Yeah, 100%. Liying, do you have any tips for finding those, maybe not so much first hires, but those partners like an EOR, in the early stages?
So yeah, I think like it's just so important. Like I say, we want to be the extension of clients that we work with, right? We understand that this is not just a one-off project. By the end of the day, these expansions are so important to the survival of these companies, to the growth of these companies, that we take on a certain accountability and responsibility in what we're doing. So for clients that are looking to expand out, and one of the questions I asked Multiplier when I joined was, how many entities do we have in different countries? So I want to make sure that it's our own entity that we are responsible for, and not just working with local third parties, because that's just dilutes a bit of the environment. But we want to make sure that we are doing right by our clients as well, and we take all ownership of employees who might be on EOR with us while we help companies launch. Right. The reason why companies use EOR sometimes and many times is because there's a speed to market requirement. And they might take the 6, 8, 12 months to set up an entity by themselves. But in the meanwhile, the project can't wait, like I mentioned earlier. And we want to be part of this as well to make sure that you are launching to market. And so we say, come take us, use us first while you spend, concurrently, so that your folks can go to market. And we have the local expertise and local knowledge, right? We have our own entities in there. We have our expertise, our lawyers, our local partners to make sure that the labour's laws, taxation, your required, extra month's payment, we sort all of that out for you so that you can launch the market and then slowly work with a legal team, a business services team to set up your entity there while you do that, and then we can help transition them and still be a payroll partner down the line. Because you also still, like, once you register it, you'll put your people under your entity, but you might come to me and say, hey, Liying, I still don't want to have to deal with local statutory payments because I don't want to do the logins. I will forget, right? I know I'll forget. Dennis, I think you'll forget as well. So
I never remembered all this.
so we don't want to be the ones doing that, because at the end of the day, like, we want to bring the business in, make sure our folks are being paid compliantly, and then grow the business, right? So use, like you mentioned just now, use the right partners so that they are the experts in there, while we go on to do what we want and what we can and what we dream of for the organization and for our clients as well in this case. So I think it's just so important that we work together as partners with our clients to ensure their success, and in their success will be our success. And I think there is just no better mission than that, just to make sure that we get to market fast. And like I said earlier, I've been on the client end before. I know how painful it is, and I'm able to resonate with my clients when I say, yeah, don't worry, we've sorted out, we've identified 3 local insurance partners for you, pick from them, because you don't want to be outsourcing and emailing people. I emailed like 10 insurance companies on my own and no one will respond to me. And I was desperate to make sure that we are covered, because I make sure my guys are covered and we're not at risk of getting into accident without the coverage from medical. And without that, I can't launch a business. So it's very chicken and egg. And being able to solve this problem for our clients it's really rewarding for me, and why I picked this job as well.
I should have met you earlier, Liying, but never mind, not too late.
Never too late, never too late. But yeah, I mean, right now maybe we will talk about the pains of filling out the Excel spreadsheet every month
Oh man,
before the
don't
12th.
remind me. I need to get drunk thinking about that.
Dennis, what was your approach to compliance? You hired the head of compliance, right? Was that from like day one or?
No, it took me a while because to Liying's point, right, you want to scale fast and move fast. So sometimes as a founder, right, you tend to forget these things, right? Like, hey, who's watching your back? Where's the rear view mirror? You can just drive, right? Of course, you can argue that all F1 cars do not have rear view mirrors, right? But but I think after a while you start when you're gonna do your expansion seriously, right? This is something you cannot neglect. You can make lots of money, you can make lots of revenue, yeah, sure, but you just need one mishap or miscalculation of your risk. It falls down like a house of cards, right? And it doesn't just impact that setup you have in, say, Zimbabwe. It impacts your overall organization, and then that's something that we every day, you can't just keep your fingers crossed and Hail Mary 3 times, they'll go away, right? So these are real issues.
Especially employees, you don't want them to be complaining to the ministry, because you don't want them to do that. You don't want the reputation impacted. You don't want any complaints of late salary payments, God bless, because the client will go like, if you can't pay your staff, like, how are you going to make sure that you deliver on my project? So I think there's a lot of reputational risk involved in there.
Correct.
And also the trust of your employees, because you are trusting the market to them. And if you lose their trust, I think that fundamentally erodes a lot of the good work that you have done previously.
100%. And I think particularly so when you're hiring individuals that you don't see on a daily basis, right? You see on a Zoom call, you get on a phone. But I mean, if in the Singapore office, I see my team every day. Sometimes you have your your side chats, and you have whatever breaks, you can still chit chat. But when they're away, I think these are the things that matter to them, because they don't see you, you don't see them. So yeah, it's important. Very important, actually.
Trust is you can't earn trust back that easily.
You cannot. Yeah, you lose it, you're gone.
Yeah.
And I think even in some markets, if I could just talk a bit, in Singapore, it's still, I mean, we are lucky in a sense that you can make a call to MOM, and it's always a mediation. if you get these issues. But in some parts of the world, sometimes it's, there's no mediation. It's just angry people running around, right? And so this answer is not great. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that all makes sense, definitely. I think for the last section of the webinar, I just want to focus a bit on kind of sustainable scaling. So not only how do you expand into those first few regions, but how do you set everything up so that you can, grow in a sustainable way. So I'd love to hear from you first, Dennis. Like, what does this look like for you? Like, how did you kind of set things up so that when you're expanding into these first few regions, you could protect, like, I don't know, your culture or your ways of doing things that in a way that did work, but also allow for new cultures too?
I think it starts organically from where we are now, the head office, if I may use the word. I'm not one of those founders that will put posters on a wall on values and cultures, right? I've always told my team, you hold me accountable for how I behave and how I talk to you. And I just had my board meeting yesterday, and I very clearly spelled out to the board that I'm intending to remove. I would not bring in middle managers. It's either you're a leader or you are an executor. You decide, right? So if a person comes in, they'll be an executor. There will not be a poster office or message center. So why that brings first and foremost the leaders closer to the ground. Secondly, the team has direct access to someone to guide them. So that is something I'm percolating everywhere, wherever we are, as kind of not a mandate, but kind of how our culture is. Now that's the soft part, right? Now the hard part is really to have the right tools and the right systems in place. Because I can talk so much, but if my person in Poland is still scrambling his spreadsheet, then something is wrong with me. So I do not wish the pain of my enemies. Why would I wish it on my people? So, 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 I think, so I think the right core operating blocks needs to be there before after the culture. So these are the two key areas I look at, because over time I spent my life. I won't tell you how long to both of you. That would just tell you how old I am. But I realized the slowness comes from middle managers. No disrespect to middle managers, but I also think middle managers need to learn one key word, which is accountability. Because I've been in organizations where the problem gets kicked sideways, downwards, upwards, but just never holding the problem. It's like a hot potato, right? So I think that itself, because even with the best systems in place, if that culture is not set right, the systems won't work itself, right? So you need to work the system. So that's what I deeply believe in. Whether it's right or wrong, well, the board agreed. So it's and I mean, which is my third point, right? There's a lot of test and learn. I wouldn't get it right in the first time, and I always be the first to admit to my team, you know what, just to share with both of you, I was struggling to come into this call earlier on because there were so many invitations on one specific time slot, like 3 different on the. Then I realized actually I was the one making the boo-boo. So I told my owner, so I'll sort it out. But I kind of, in the fit of panic, because I don't want to be late, right? I was messaging my EA, I was messaging my comms guy. Then they say, are you okay? Are you in? No, it's my mistake. Yeah, so these little things, right? Not a big thing, but it's kind of like I give you another example, right? This is important to me, so I'm kind of talking a bit more. I'm happy to be in a room where everybody tells me no, right? Because I've been in meetings where it's an echo chamber, right? Everybody tells the emperor's new clothes, oh, you look great. So that is a recipe for disaster. Why did I bring that up? Because we all have, I mean, Multiplier it's one of the better companies or good companies that we can work with to solve all these EOR issues, I'm sure. But if you don't have the right people, Multiplier can help you. if you know what I mean. Because if you have the wrong people using it, it's just like put a nuclear weapon in someone's hand with an ill intention, boom. This thing will black out and you all become smithereens somewhere. So I think the right tools with the right people. So people to me is still center to what I do in any expansion. The tools, we need to empower them, the right tools. Then I think it's great. Then I think we're all in for fun.
I love the two keywords here that I'm picking up: accountability and empowerment.
Yeah,
It's just so important in creating the right infrastructure for the culture of the business, I believe.
correct. So yeah, that's pretty much how I see it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know. I know. I'm sorry, Beth. I know it's a very long answer to a short question, but yeah.
No, I love the there was so much there. Yeah, and I guess what leadership qualities are important to you? Because you mentioned a couple there, like, but yeah, what do you think makes a good leader of a global team?
I think it's being human, number one. And I mean, everybody goes back to either their parents or their loved ones at home, right? And it's a human need, right? Uh, Giving safety to everyone, not safety as in a road marshal or better cars or anything. I think safety to voice out, to say that something is not working. Uh, I think that's one. And as a leader, okay, without sounding like oof, you know, I over time I've learned over past experiences, the best leaders that I've worked with are the ones that are very human, right? Because always remember this, right? This is what I always tell myself and I tell my teams. Titles don't mean anything, right? But in a large organization, sometimes after a while, the title makes the person leaves the title and thinks that he's entitled. He or she is entitled. So I kind of I mean, and I'm not proud about it. I'm just saying it, right? I've been given warning letters before in my previous life. I wouldn't mention where I was having a drink with software devs. They were supposed to be really junior guys, and a warning letter says that you should not be hanging as a senior leader of the organization. You should not be hanging around with junior people having drinks. Then I was wondering, then why do we even plaster all these posters around the organization? Transparency, all these blah blah big words, right? With the nice posters, we probably paid a fortune for some design firms to put it there. So we got to live and walk the talk as a leader. So as I said before, I hold myself accountable for the culture of my organization. So it's for them to check on me whether did I say what I say, do I do what I do, or what do I mean? And I make it a point. I know it sounds old school, right? I'm always trying to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. And I hold true to that unless I have an evening engagement or an evening meeting. Then yeah, of course I can't be the last one. I wouldn't be coming back to lock the office, right? So yeah, that's how I see it. Right? It's as simple as that, but it's hard to leave it.
Yeah, no, but that makes sense. That makes sense. Liying, is there anything on your side on this kind of sustainable scaling point, like whether it be on the people side or the systems?
On the people front, I really love what Dennis has shared. I think it's just so important that culture is not just words on the wall. It's not just words in a handbook. It's not just another Notion page, but something that everyone lives and breathes. I think that's most important. Otherwise, we're not actually embodying what we're set out to do, right? In terms of the guiding principles of where we want the business to go. And then after that, it becomes difficult as you start. It might be easy the first 10 people in the office, right? When you start building out, it's not so bad, it's 10 people. But as you grow from 10 to 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, and that's where things get more diluted, right? So you have layers in there. I know Dennis was saying you don't want middle managers, but I guess with a team of 5,000, you have to have middle managers somewhere. But that's where things get diluted. And if we don't actually, ensure that there is that embodiment of the values and what's important in terms of the core non-negotiables in what you expect from your people and what you bring to the business yourself, then it's hard for a new hire to come in to see and really live and breathe or understand how the business has started and where everyone's passions and motivations are. So if they can come in and still see that, hey, Daniel is the boss and he still comes in every day, rain or shine, and he's first in office, how does he do it? So I think that's when we start building that through, and that's when you can actually really start creating, a culture that can be met and can grow together as the business grows. Can't share more, right? Or can't stress enough on how I think that's so important in culture, not just being 5 words on the wall on a nice poster. Like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what, Liying, I when I hit 5,000 employees, I will call you. I will make sure that we still don't have middle managers. I'm just kidding.
No, it's like the Nvidia boss, right? I think I hear he's 51 direct reportees just because he doesn't believe in layers itself. Jason Huang. So yeah, it could be next there. Beth, to your point in terms of systems, coming in from the multiplier point of view, I think it's just amazing what our tech team does. I just got off a call in terms of integration. Literally, call before this was on our integrations and how we're able to map to ensure that we are able to meet the needs of our clients. Coming through, we're talking about a simple, integration with maybe a basic HRS, all the way as a client grows and expands the business into a much larger ERP system. We're able to walk with them through all these different forms of integration and requirements to ensure that at the end of the day, we do best at what we do, which is to make sure that people are paid compliantly. And as the business grows, that is still non-negotiable for us. And how do we continue to service our clients through their growth, their expansions into different markets, different currencies, so that they can go on to focus on what they do best, which is not Excel spreadsheets and not systems and platforms, maybe, but we take away that pain and ensure that things are done right and compliantly, so that you continue to build the trust with your people and build the right culture to grow the business in the forward direction that our clients want. So I think that's something that I'm so glad that our tech team is able to help our clients with, so that we can all grow together. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, any final thoughts from either of you, like any tips or reflections from when you started out your expansion out of Singapore?
I think I'll start first so that Dennis has time. I think he has a lot more experience. I'll do a quick one. Like I said, coming in from a user perspective before, to now on the other end as an employer multiplier, this mission to be able to drive a global workforce has never been more important. And like what Dennis mentioned earlier, COVID has truly accelerated a lot of it. That we now see that workforce doesn't have to be geographically bound to the office or a country, and how do we break through some of this it could be a mental barrier or just a societal barrier we had before COVID. And in creating that world without borders, we truly are able to scope ourselves globally as well. So I think that is just so beautiful. And as what Dennis has also shared with us, with that, what we also need to hold so dear and anchor down is the right culture, so that people might not be sitting next to each other. We see each other on screen. We meet each other maybe once in 3 to 6 months we're in country, but that shared language and culture and angle remains the same, as we both drive the efforts towards accountability and empowerment of the people to grow together. So thank you for that. I have learned a lot today, and yeah, I'm so glad that we resonated on our similar pains. In terms of regulatory filings.
Yeah, thanks, Liying. I think I like what you just said. It truly resonates with me, because I think we are global citizens, right? We should not be governed what's in our head, because the mind itself, if you want to do it, you can do it. That's one. Two is I think if you let yourself learn, any culture you can adapt. I think sometimes we have self-limiting beliefs, right? That it's difficult so far. No, and so I think that itself, and I want to maybe just to mention, right, since you're on a parting note, one of the things is non-negotiable in my organization is an email with the title urgent. Because if it's urgent, why are you emailing? Then you pick up the phone and call. So I don't allow that in my organization because if it's urgent, it's urgent. Right? And I think also perspective also I've learned to adapt because to us in Singapore, when we are in Singapore, I wouldn't say to Singaporeans, when we are in Singapore, we've never experienced a blackout. We've never experienced, of course, sometimes Singtel crashes, right? So, but that's outage, that's not all the time, very rarely. And it's like a major national disaster. But you have to be cognizant of your parties. My team overseas, sometimes they do, run out of data, you run out of coverage. Then you look at the WhatsApp, is one tick, then you get frustrated. It's like, what? Did he block me or what? Did she block me? So I think we have to take an account of the inconveniences sometimes the teams in other places experience. Because in Singapore, we don't have these issues. Connectivity is not really a trouble. Wi-Fi spots, especially when the teams are working out there, meeting customers. I think these are the things. Uh, Again, it boils down to one simple word, right? Being human. And I guess patience is for global expansion. You need that patience. You can't rush through a conversation as speedy as you want. But I think finding the right platform to operate, finding the right people, finding the right culture, finding the right compass. I think internally, what's our compass? Because if I'll just say this very candidly, if by nature an individual has always not liked expanding in their business, just want to say, then don't force it because you'll come out wrong. It'll come out so wrong. It's just like, I mean, if two of you to ask me to bake a muffin, I can try, but I'm not very sure you like the muffin, but I will not declare that I can make the best muffins in the world, right? So I think you have to understand, also be self-aware. I think self-awareness is a big attribute of any leader as well. And self-awareness is a big attribute for global expansion. What you can do and what you cannot do. So I think that's kind of my little observations I have. It's not even nuggets of wisdom or it's not even advice. It's just observations, right? I can't qualify to give advice and I don't have much wisdom to give as nuggets. So yeah.
No, that was perfect. That was a great note to leave things on. Thank you both so much for your time. It was really great to hear from you. And thank you everyone for attending the webinar. We will be sending out a replay link to your emails, so keep an eye out for that, and as well as our exclusive global expansion guide for CEOs. So that will be sent to your inbox too.